Hello, everyone. I am Valente, and this is the Valente Brothers podcast. I am joined by Pedro Valente.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for being with us once again.
And Joaquim Valente.
Hello, everyone. Pleasure to be here.
We're going to continue talking about the 753 code, the philosophy of Jiu-Jitsu. Last episode, we discussed the 7. Today, we're going to talk about the 5. Professor Pedro, what are the 5 elements?
Exercise, nutrition, rest, hygiene, and positivity.
They represent the body, correct?
Physical health, the health of the body, correct.
When we organized the 753 code, one of our missions was to help not only, I think, ourselves initially, but our students understand the old mind, body, and spirit expression, philosophy. I think it's commonly used, but many times it's only about those words, mind, body, and spirit. But what does that really mean? So the 7 represent what?
The preservation of spiritual wellness.
And the 5?
The preservation of physical wellness.
So the body.
Yes.
So we started with the mind, and today we're going to actually, with the spirit.
Correct.
With the spirit, the 7, and today we're going to talk about the body.
Yes.
So we should start with which one of the 5?
Exercise. But before we start with exercise, I would like to say that even though they're separated in spirit, body, and mind, we can't forget that they're all connected. That's extremely important to understand. Everything you do for your spirit will affect your body and your mind. What you do for your body will affect your spirit and your mind. And what you do for your mind will affect the spirit and the body. So we can't completely separate them. And we can't cherry pick. It's important that we have a holistic approach. The 753 code is a holistic philosophy. It's based on the whole. It's based on the whole person. And the understanding that you must address your health as a whole and not be too specialized.
Joaquim, if there was maybe one advice, one word that comes to your mind when we talk about exercise, what would that be?
I think consistency. Consistency, I think, is key in anything we do, but especially with exercise. It basically is the result of discipline, so that you can really feel that you have the results over a long period of time in your life. And that's what we're looking for with exercise.
And I think that has a lot to do with the lifestyle that you develop. I think there's a huge difference between working on a project, on a small, even event, towards an event. We often see this in professional sports during the season and then the off season. And sometimes many athletes, even professional athletes, I think this happens less now because I think there is a general understanding of how that can be harmful to our bodies and even to our performance towards our performance. But you see that if there is no immediate objective, a lot of times even athletes will lose their motivation towards practicing and towards exercising. How do you see that, Pedro?
I think the key word that you just mentioned is motivation. And I always like to speak about this word because this word is very important, motivation. You have to think about motive. You have to think about the reason. So the question is, why do we exercise? Many athletes exercise for a specific competition, for a specific event. And so if that's the only objective, then once that competition is over, once that event is over, once your career is over, then there might not be a motive. That's why we see so many retired athletes not preserve their health as they did when they were competing. It's very common, and there are many people who are in that position. So we believe that exercise should be motivated by health. And that should be the most important thing for a human being, to preserve the health. Because without health, you can't do anything. So for me, that's the key, is exercising to be healthy on the outside and on the inside.
So you just talked about professional athletes, and during the season or even during their careers compared to when they retire. But are they, in many cases, are athletes, professional athletes, high performance athletes, are they actually healthy? Are they exercising in a sensible way, in a healthy way? Does that really make someone achieve the best results in the short term for specific sports?
Yes, this reminds me of the phrase, the quote that our father always repeated. The difference between poison and medicine is in the dose. Good things can be detrimental if done in an exaggerated way, and exercise is no different. So we must find the right amount of exercise. We must exercise in a sensible way so that we're not doing harm to our bodies. And sometimes to compete at a high level, you might be doing harm
I
to
think
your body.
there's a sacrifice sometimes for specific sports and to be at that high level that the athlete has to take. And, you know, I think some athletes create a better lifestyle, as you mentioned, and others, you know, don't. So I think it's like with other, you know, with a normal person, it's really that ability to create a lifestyle. And I think for an athlete, it's even harder for him to be able to do that, depending on what he does and the sport and the style. But I think, you know, when I think of exercise, I really think of so many benefits that come from creating a daily routine in exercise, not only for the body, but also for the mind, in being able to overcome, in learning to be able to evolve every day that you do that activity, and looking for ways for you to be able to do that activity better, right? Whatever exercise you choose to be the healthy one for you. And I think that creating the discipline, and, you know, if you I like to, you know, exercise in the morning, and jiu-jitsu is one of the best exercises that you can do. And having that discipline, and also to be able to disconnect the mind, I think it's a great way for you to meditate, for you to really, you know, break away from a lot of the things that are in your mind in your day-to-day, you know, work. And so I think that creating that lifestyle has an improvement in all areas of your life just by having exercise as a priority in your day.
Movement, that's a quote that we like. Movement is life. Stagnation is death. We must move in order to be healthy, in order to be alive. And if we look at our ancestors, they were naturally exercising much more than we do because they had to. It was part of their lifestyle. Because of our collective intelligence, we were able to find ways to create comfort in our lives so that we can sit down in a chair most of the day, so that we can drive cars that don't require any physical action or very little physical action for them to move. So we have created ways to be able to exercise less, to move less. So I think a sensible exercise routine brings us back to our roots and brings us back to our normal state as human beings. It's unnatural to sit on a chair all day, to lay down, to sit on a couch, watch TV, and not move, not exercise. Our ancestors used to wrestle to be able to stay alive, used to run, to walk, to carry heavy weights. This was part of normal life.
Build
With their hands. And so...
Climb.
Yes.
Hunt.
Swim. Ride. So all these activities were natural for human beings. And so in order to maintain our natural state and to thrive physically and mentally, we must have a sensible exercise routine.
Before we talk about the next principle, I think it's important for us to go back to what you referred to as motive when I spoke about motivation and the importance of what's behind or your intention. Today, we see through social media that really the objective is not to be healthy, right? I think we have to be honest. a lot of people out there today think about how they look more than how they feel. They're more concerned about the looks than the feel. In professional sports, I don't know, but I have read innumerous articles, and even former athletes have said that. We also know how many times it's very common to see professional athletes getting caught with drug-enhancing substances. Why do you think this happens, and how can we try to work on that? Because we're not perfect, and we all might make that mistake at some level.
Correct. It's stimulating the proper motive. That's what you just said. What is the motive? It's to look good in front of a mirror, or maybe to make you feel better because you had a horrible meal the night before, and then you think that by exercising, you're going to burn those calories, and somehow that's going to eliminate the harm from that horrible meal that you had. Or is it because you want to win a medal, so then you're going to take destructive substances that you know are going to harm your body in the long run so that you can perform better in a sport, so that you sacrifice your health in order to win a medal? Is that worth it? So I think it has to do with promoting positive values. Nothing is more important than your health. This is about self-respect and about not doing anything to harm yourself. Unless it's for a higher cause, to save someone, for example, then you can put your health in jeopardy. But just to win a medal, to win, so that's where the debate has to be. What's the motive? What's the reason? And for us, the motivation of exercise should be, as any of the 753 code, should be for us to enhance our health so that we can become better human beings, healthier human beings, so that we can be of more service to our community, to our society.
And that applies, if I may, Joaquim, that applies perfectly to the training, to the practice of jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu is, in its essence, about self-defense, self-preservation. So we have to question ourselves as teachers, as practitioners. Why is it that after years we see jiu-jitsu practitioners, because of the practice of jiu-jitsu in most cases, be in very bad physical condition? Is it because of jiu-jitsu, or was it because of your motives as you practice jiu-jitsu? What are your objectives when you train jiu-jitsu? Is it to be healthy? Is it to learn a skill? Is it to develop your ability as far as self-defense, your motor skills? So I believe that as jiu-jitsu practitioners, we have to really think about how the practice of jiu-jitsu has to be healthy, and it cannot be unhealthy for our mind and especially for our bodies.
And that's something that our teacher, Hélio Gracie, he always repeated to us. Don't do it in a way that is going to harm your body. And that's why he was able to go to 95 years old with a healthy body.
And he practiced jiu-jitsu at high levels with high intensity, but he knew, especially as he got older, he knew how to manage his training, and I think he was able to recover.
Yes, high intensity, but he had a defensive mindset. He avoided or minimized the use of muscular strength and muscular resistance in training. That was always a big thing for him. And he always told us, be careful not to exaggerate in exercise. There is a balance. Exercise is extremely important, but if you do too much, you're harming your body. So his motive, we always felt that his motive with jiu-jitsu was the preservation of health through self-defense, but also through a sensible practice of the art.
Yes. Should we add anything to this chapter?
The value, as Joaquim said earlier, of the practice, of the sensible practice of jiu-jitsu, not where you're sacrificing your body for competition, but where you're practicing it in a sensible way for self-defense. And also swimming and riding. We always talk about that as very important physical activities that can be very good forms of exercise.
And they are connected with, of course, as you said earlier, the 7, the 5, the 3. Each and every one of them are connected to each other. But the emotional benefits, confidence, self-confidence benefits of exercising, studies have shown this. There is a unbelievable, innumerous benefits that you can really explore as you practice so many different physical activities. But most importantly, it is good for us. It feels good. And I think
agree.
that's the key.
Yes.
Instead of just looking good, which is important as well, but most importantly, we should feel good.
Yes, and jiu-jitsu is a holistic exercise. Again, it exercises your entire body. Every muscle, from the muscles in your face.
What jiu-jitsu, though, you're talking about?
The jiu-jitsu that I teach and that I practice and that I learned from my teacher, right? But we exercise from the muscles in our face all the way to our toes. Everything is exercised in a positive way. Now, as you mentioned, and we must repeat this, a lot of people who practice jiu-jitsu for 20, 30 years can't walk and are physically harmed by the practice of jiu-jitsu. I believe that type of practice is not worth it. Because self-defense is about the preservation of health. You don't want someone to punch you in the face or to throw you on the ground or to hit you, because that's going to affect your health.
But you don't want to be doing something that over time is actually going to have the same effect of a strike on your back.
Even worse.
But even worse.
So it doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense. So it's important, because I think as jiu-jitsu practitioners, having trained jiu-jitsu since we were 2-3 years old, we have made some mistakes. But thankfully, through the philosophy, and that's really the great benefit of understanding the philosophy and studying history and keeping your eyes open, I think you reach certain conclusions, and it's never too late to make some modifications and to learn.
And Hélio Gracie was constantly telling us, even when we were young, teenagers, always relax, focus on defense, stay on the bottom, don't wrestle. He didn't like for us to wrestle, to use power, to use strength. And those are the things that will hurt your body.
Exactly. Good. We have to keep moving.
Let's go.
So please present the next topic.
Nutrition. That's one of my favorites. And we are what we eat. Well, that's not 100% precise, because we are the combination of all these elements that we're talking about. But nutrition is extremely important. And nutrition is a big problem in our society, because we are told that a calorie is a calorie. It doesn't matter. So it's not about what you eat. It's about how much you eat, and then how much exercise you do to be able to compensate for what you eat. So it's this correlation between how many calories you eat and how many calories you burn. And as long as that balance is appropriate, then you're going to be healthy.
And Pedro, based on this and some other issues as well, we developed a 3-level system to help our students understand better what we call rational nutrition, right? And what are those 3 levels?
What you eat, how you eat, and when you eat.
So what, how, and when.
Correct. Food selection, food combining, and meal spacing. And the thing is that this myth that a calorie is a calorie couldn't be more destructive, because it means that what you eat doesn't matter. And what you eat matters a lot. And that's the first thing that we should discuss. Selecting high-quality foods and eliminating junk foods, foods that are going to harm your body. That is our nutritional philosophy. Foods that are junk, foods that are negative, foods that will negatively impact our health should be eliminated.
So you have a car, you have a machine. First thing you're going to do is choose good fuel, right? Good fuel, good oil, whatever that machine needs to function properly. You're going to choose what's best, and you're going to eliminate whatever you know is not good for you.
Good fuel is very expensive right now.
Well, imagine if you put an oil in your car and it breaks the engine. They're going to put the same oil again. It's going to be more expensive to fix it.
Exactly.
Correct.
And good food also.
Correct.
That's the point. So, Joaquim, that's actually a good question. But what if I like bad fuel? What if I like because it tastes good? Shouldn't we have fun? Life is too short. Why are you going to deprive yourself, Joaquim, from the, what's the word? The pleasures of life.
I think that we have to understand that what we like, we were trained to like that. Even before you were born, like we spoke about in some podcasts, I think 2 podcasts ago, that you were trained. So
you were taught.
Yeah. And, in a certain way you were trained because your mom was eating certain things that made you like certain foods.
Yeah, you were conditioned.
Conditioned, yeah.
That would be a good word.
So if you understand that and you understand that you can have the same amount of pleasure that someone, I was talking to a student about this yesterday, and he actually brought me some very nice mangoes because I told him, I said, the same pleasure that someone, actually I think my pleasure is better, that someone has having a very expensive wine, the most expensive wine that you can find and the finest wine that was selected as the best wine in the world, I have the same exact pleasure having my mango juice. I had to put a price...
When the mango is ripe.
Oh, yeah.
And here in Miami, we have great mangoes.
Great mangoes. I had mango juice as breakfast this morning.
Oh, my God.
And they brought me these, the student brought me these amazing mangoes from his house.
Wait, but fruit is bad. Too much sugar.
No, hold on. Please. So, and I told him, it's the same pleasure. Now, the difference is that I'm doing this with an amazing consciousness of knowing that that's an amazing food for my body, that I'm actually helping my body to be able to recover, helping my body to be able to perform in the best way possible. While someone who is honest and is having other kinds of foods that are not so good for them, they know that that's not going to be helping them. So it's interesting because people say you cannot train your taste, especially after you get older. Once you like this, that's it. And I tell them, all you need is 90 days. And when I say this, I always remember Pedro because I used to come here to spend my vacation, my summer vacation in from school in Brazil. And I used to come, and Gui used to go to Brazil, and I used to come here to spend time with Pedro. And I used to not like sushi. I hated sushi, and I actually went to Japan 2 times, and I never tried sushi while I was there. And we used to go to this Japanese restaurant, and he used to try to tell me to taste the fish, and I'm like, no. And today is one of my favorite foods.
Which one? The one in South Beach in Washington?
No, Yakuza.
Yes, I remember. Pedro, we have been, of course, over the years talking to students, and we always want people to feel comfortable because no one is perfect, as we always say. We make mistakes. We always want to learn from our mistakes. And we understand, too, that people are raised with different cultures, different lifestyles. And it's not because we live a certain lifestyle that we expect everyone to be like us. Of course, we chose a profession where one of our main missions is to inspire, is to teach those that want to learn our way. And for a long time, we have, of course, said, well, it's okay if you want to drink, if you want to do this, if you want to do that, if you want to eat a little bit. Maybe you haven't done that too much, but you hear this a lot, right, from specialists. Moderation. It's okay to have a little bit of dessert every day. It's okay to eat. Actually, I've heard from some specialists, you shouldn't be just too healthy all the time. You should mix that up with a few good foods that you like to eat. Maybe have a little bit of fried food, maybe have a little bit of pizza a couple times a week so that you're more balanced. What would you say to that?
I would say that way is more difficult, in my opinion. It is true that if you eat something harmful once in a lifetime,
have a glass of wine.
It's not going to probably...
Once a week.
It's not going to once a week,
Yeah.
I don't think that's so moderate. I think that becomes a continuous habit. So I'm not going to say that once a week is not going to harm you. But if you have it once in a blue moon, once every 6 months,
Well, once in a blue moon. Well, a blue moon. But once in a full moon is once a month.
yes, blue moon might be longer. But
Correct.
but if you have it once in a while, which is not once a week, it probably won't harm you. But it will be a reminder of how pleasant it is to you if you like it. And then it's going to be more difficult to resist it and not to have it all the time. So I think that moderation is more difficult than abstinence.
So what would you say? So let's talk about what would you eliminate?
Practicality.
Yeah. What would you eliminate?
So that's a very interesting question that you're asking me right now, because
What's the answer?
because we see, let me first explain. We see right now this huge fight between proteins and carbs. Some people defend fats and proteins, others defend carbs. Vegans versus carnivores. They fight against each other. And the real enemy is just going around happily. Right? So we have to separate real foods from junk foods, from fake foods, from processed foods, from industrialized foods.
So you have a list.
Yes. And what are real foods?
Go ahead,
What are real foods?
please.
Right? Real foods. So, vegetables, fruits, nuts, roots, meats, dairy, grains.
Well, dairy can be processed.
Well, but I'm talking about milk and
Meat.
cheese.
So
Sure, I'm not talking about processed meat.
yeah,
I'm talking about real foods.
meats can be processed.
Sure, yes. So these are real foods, honey, foods that human beings have been eating for a long time. All those foods that you find in the middle aisles of the supermarket that comes in a box, full of with a huge list of ingredients. Those foods are processed, industrialized foods that are not meant for human consumption and are going to have a negative effect. So let me tell you some foods that I believe are negative
And should be eliminated in your
should
opinion.
be eliminated.
Or maybe you have once a couple days.
I don't recommend.
Couple of days.
Soda, any type of soda drink. Energy drinks,
Really?
yes. Industrialized sugar. Candy, chips, pretzels. Processed meats. All these foods should be seed oils, vegetable oils. Sometimes people who want to be vegan,
But why pretzels?
go look at the ingredients and then you'll understand.
Isn't pretzel like a bread?
No. It has oils, it's an industrial, it's not a freshly baked bread.
Is bread? Oh, so freshly baked bread is fine.
It's something that human beings have been eating for thousands of years. It's not, it's
Hold on, but
considered
there are
real
many
food.
different types of
See,
bread.
That's the problem. We're now going to get in an argument about bread, and then Coca-Cola, all the sodas, all the soft drinks are going around. Obviously, we can have debates. Vegans are going to say that bread is better than meat. Carnivores are going to say that meat, and I think that
Yeah,
there's...
I avoid
and
bread.
and
I love bread, but I avoid
That's
bread.
okay. And there's some people who avoid meat, right? And the thing
I
is...
avoid eating meat too much, of
Yes.
course.
So the thing is that I believe it's okay, and it's actually a good thing to have moderation of the good foods.
Yeah, you should, of course.
Because anything that you eat too much is going to be bad for you.
Yeah, I understand what Pedro is saying.
So real foods versus processed foods, industrialized foods. If you cut the industrialized foods from your diet, because sometimes you see people who join the vegan diet, and they say, my health improved so much. It's usually mostly because they cut the industrialized foods. Same with the carnivores. My health improved so much.
I understand, but Pedro, I think you have to analyze from 2 points of view. I think someone who is having soda and is having dessert after every meal and is having, industrialized foods, and they're coming home and having these snacks out of bags and things that are industrialized, I think I agree with you.
Can I give some more examples?
Hold on. Let me just finish, please.
Okay.
They have to focus on those things. But someone that already eats where those ingredients and those things are not part of their diet, then they have all the right to get into an argument to see what if bread is good or not.
Find me these aliens. Find me these aliens.
Oh no! What do you mean aliens?
What do you mean?
Very few
There's
people.
a lot of people that don't drink
in
soda.
our world?
In our
One moment. One moment. Vegetable oils. It's present in almost everything that you buy. Artificial sweeteners. Ketchup, mayonnaise, mustard, sauces and condiments, salad dressings. So I think people should be more focused on cutting these things first, eliminating these things first. If they do that, it's such a step forward. Now, obviously, they have the right to think, and they should. And people can make adjustments. And I think there's not one size fit all solution. I think that nutrition is personal. I think that what's good for me might not be good for you, but one thing is good for everyone: cutting the junk. I think someone might feel better on a diet that has a little bit more meat and vegetables and less starches, less grains. I understand that. I also see someone who might have a little bit more of carbohydrates and less meat, and they might do better on that. Some people don't do well with meat and dairy, for example. Some people might thrive on raw dairy. Others might not. And obviously, it's okay to have that discussion on what's best for you, and I'm going to have my personal opinions. But I think the first mission, as we talk about nutrition, is to get people to eliminate or at least avoid as much as possible all this industrialized food that is killing them. All this artificial sugar that is added to almost everything. All these seed oils that are highly destructive. And they're killing people. And they're causing all sorts of diseases. And then people can't even eat fruit without their sugar popping up, these spikes in sugar. And people now wear these CGMs, these continuous glucose monitors, which is a good thing. And then they eat a piece of fruit and the sugar pops up and they say, see, sugar is not good for you. Maybe
what sugar? Which sugar?
Fruit is, they might say, no, I eat an orange. But how you're reacting to that orange might have something to do with your lifestyle and the food choices that you make. Because we know that not everyone who eats an orange is going to have the same metabolic response
and we believe
to that orange.
If eaten correctly, properly, fruits are very good and healthy for human beings.
Yes, but they have to be careful, as our father used to always remind me. He said, be careful when telling people to eat too many fruits, because if their diet is very bad, that fruit might have a negative effect.
If eaten correctly and properly.
And the rest of your diet being a good diet, 100%. Fruit, I think, is the best carbohydrate that human beings can consume.
Are we missing something? I think I was going to say something else about this topic. Oh, I think we have to mention briefly, even though it's not we're not just talking about nutrition today, but of course, food combining.
Yes.
That's really the essence of what we learned, our father learned from Carlos Gracie.
Yes, and there is a whole table of food combining, but I think 3 main rules so people can understand easily. Don't mix fats and proteins with sugars. So no dessert. Fruits included. Don't eat fruits with proteins and fats. Don't
eat sugars with protein and fats.
Correct.
Correct.
Don't mix 2 starches.
You don't
in
need
the same
that
meal.
excess.
Correct. And acidic fruits best eaten alone. I think with those 3 rules, you cover almost the entire food combining principle.
Chew a lot, excessively. Chew a lot, and chew your juices too.
Because the digestion starts in the mouth, in the saliva, and mixing the saliva with the food to create the bolus is extremely important.
Yes.
And also eat with a good mood and a good temperament, because that has a direct impact on your metabolic response to the food and your ability to absorb the nutrients and if that food's going to be good for you or not.
Yeah, we have to do a podcast on nutrition again very soon. But let's also talk about when to eat. right? We've talked about this a lot recently because over the years, what we learned from our dad through Carlos Gracie, many people criticized the fact that we would sometimes stay, almost half a day, sometimes a whole day without eating, right? And only having maybe water or sometimes juices and sometimes fasting completely. And maybe modern nutrition philosophies or systems often pushed ideas that you should eat maybe in every 2 hours to increase your metabolism. And again, I think that's a result of the confusion of motive. What's your motivation?
Correct.
Right? People confuse the fact that what we're trying to do, what we learn, is based on health, is based on longevity. And many times what you might do to increase your weight or to, be able to develop more muscle mass is actually contradictory to health.
Correct. But luckily, science is catching up.
Yeah.
And
proving that validating that the old ways were right.
Yes. And even some people in the jiu-jitsu community and were telling me, no, you have to forget about Carlos Gracie. He was not right. You have to eat every 3 hours.
Yeah,
and now
it's a mistake too.
You got to be careful. Science sometimes is a cycle.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And now, but sometimes you have to be careful with those cycles.
That's what I'm saying.
And you have to hold on to your...
Because now they're saying something that favors the intermittent fasting, but maybe soon they're going to say again.
Yes. But you have to see what feels good.
No, actually, no, Joaquim. I think what you're referring to, the cycle, at least that's what I understood, is that you believe something that has been... our father used to use the word consagrado. Some principles, even in medicine, and principles in science, of course, and proven over time. Something that has been proven over long periods of time. And then something new comes around. And actually, the cycles many times are a problem because they are motivated by what? We were discussing this a couple days ago.
I think another podcast would be great for this, but there's a problem with the science of nutrition.
Yeah.
Because it's very difficult to study nutrition. For example, fruits.
No, and where's the money coming from?
Correct.
But that's what I said.
It costs a lot of money.
You said science is catching up, and that's what I meant. It's catching up, but maybe soon there's going to be other motives and other monies that are going to be favoring again to say that you should keep your metabolism higher and you should...
Correct. It's a pendulum. It goes from one side to the other. You're absolutely right, Joaquim. But the point that I'm making is that at least now in this present time, it is validated to intermittent fasting and through other studies that show the importance of giving your body rest. And while the body is resting from food, there's some processes, especially when it comes to longevity and aging, that are amazing and that have been proven to create great benefits.
Give the machine rest. I think that's common sense.
Exactly.
And for some unbelievable reason, for a period of time, people were saying, no, keep the machine on all day.
Yes.
And that should be better for you. It just doesn't make sense.
Correct.
So next, what's the other topic?
The next topic is rest. That's what you just said. So it fits perfectly.
Yeah.
If the machine doesn't rest, it can't thrive. Nothing is better than giving your body a good reset, your mind a good reset, to regenerate, to recover, than sleep, a good night's sleep. Our father used to say, sleep is the best doctor, it's the best remedy, it's the best medicine. A good night's sleep. And
but he also loved the quote that says, the best never rest.
Yeah, but I think you have to keep that into perspective.
Of course,
it's an exaggeration to make a point about the relevance of hard work, but we know how much our father valued sleep.
I think the point I'm trying to make is that you should be very careful. Again, just like we said, just like we talked about nutrition, just like we talked about exercise. I think that you have to understand the difference. Like you also mentioned, the difference between poison and medicine is in the dose. And you have to rest. You have to give your body rest. Correct. Now, if you rest all day, you won't be productive, of course.
Correct. And I think that your sleep and the quality of your sleep and how you rest is a great thermometer to everything else connected with the 5. The way you exercise, nutrition, and the effect of that it has on your sleep is amazing. So, you talk to people that have a hard time sleeping, and a lot of the problems come from the food they eat, for sometimes lack of exercise, or sometimes the way they exercise, the quality of the exercise. So analyzing that and putting that into perspective, I think is really a great way for you to be able to connect all of the 5
and improve,
together.
And improve. I think that's the objective. That's a great point, Joaquim. So Pedro, why don't we just share some of the maybe advices we learned, some of the tricks maybe to help to improve your sleep quality.
Yeah, our father would always say that sleep is a mysterious thing. You lose consciousness for between 7 and 9 hours. You lose consciousness. And suddenly you wake up and you feel better. Like, what's happening to your body during that time? So protecting that sleep is extremely important. So let's start connecting it to nutrition. It is ideal not to eat right before you go to sleep. If you can give it at least 2 or 3 hours.
At least. Hopefully more. And hopefully have a very light meal as your night meal.
Yes.
Okay, what about the bed?
So the quality of the invest in your sleep. So that starts with the quality.
I can just sleep on any little mattress, any little bed.
And then the quality of your sleep will be affected and your health will be affected. What's more important than your health? We know how important sleep is. And let me tell you, differently than nutrition, that is very difficult to have studies. And that's why you have doctors who contradict each other and say exactly the different things, and they're both doctors. Yeah. With sleep, there's robust science on that subject and how the mattress affects a good pillow, the position, the temperature of the room, the temperature of the mattress. All these things affect the quality of the sleep. The positions, find out what are the best positions that I can sleep in. And then, oh no, but I only like to sleep a certain way. Well, but if it's not the best, just like with nutrition, create the habit.
What about the electronics in the room?
EMF. Those are extremely dangerous. There's not a lot of science on that yet, but my feeling is that if you can avoid that as much as possible.
But even lights out, complete lights out, all those little lights out, in the room.
Yes. Leaving your phone a little bit away from you so you avoid that EMF.
Sleep early, I think helps.
I think dark is very important, investing in a blackout window.
But if you sleep early, you will maximize the time that is dark already so that you don't have to.
I recommend both. I recommend both. But yes, according to the circadian rhythms, it is better to sleep when the sun goes down and to wake up.
And of course, some
when
people
the sun
can't.
Goes up.
Some people can't because of work. So yes. Then you should definitely have a very good blackout.
A solid wall between 7 and 9 hours of sleep separating your days. People sometimes say, well, for me, 4 hours is enough. I don't believe that.
Well, I believe that some people are different. Just like with nutrition, just like with exercise, I think that it's not one size fits all.
It's not one size fits all, but I think it varies between 7 and 9. I think when you go to 3 hours of sleep, some people say, I can operate on 3 hours, 4 hours of sleep. You have to look at the whole, at the nutrition, at the exercise, and all the other elements
and try to
in
improve
that person's life to make sure that we find the reason why they're not getting enough sleep and how they can improve, because I think it's gonna affect them in the long run.
I have an advice for those friends who might be sometimes a little concerned about the exact number of hours you're sleeping. My advice is this: forget about it. Forget about it. Don't even do the numbers. Don't even check. Just relax and do everything else. Do your homework. Eat right.
Correct.
Right, and we're going to talk about the 5.
Worrying about it doesn't fix the problem.
Don't be like, oh, I have to go to bed because I need to get this.
Correct.
But a lot of these apps and watches nowadays, they do exactly that, right?
I don't like.
I know Guy doesn't like it too much. Pedro likes it.
I do like it, and people are different. Some people, that creates stress for them, and they shouldn't use it. For some people, it serves as motivation for them to do better and sleep more. So it just depends on the person, on the personality. However, I think it's extremely important that what Guy just said, worrying about it when you're going to sleep and saying, I have to sleep 8 hours and getting upset, no, that's not going to help.
And if you wake up in the middle of the night and you can't go back to sleep, practice meditation.
Correct.
Close your eyes. Just understand this. Even if you can't fully fall asleep, if you're in bed, lying down, breathing and relaxing, you're resting. You might not be charging your battery as fast as you would if you're sleeping fully, but you're still charging your battery.
Yes.
The only thing you shouldn't do is grab your phone and go into social media.
Correct.
Because that's poison. If you're
Even work because of the light.
yeah, but I think the worst is
Correct.
really
I
looking
agree.
at social
I
media.
agree.
I agree too.
And also I think that energy, instead of being invested in worrying, should be invested in nutrition and exercise and all those things that will eventually improve your sleep
Oh
quality.
yeah, if you work out, you usually, and also for some people, depending how you feel, try to manage the time of the day you work out.
And
Some people, if they work out right before they go to bed, I don't think that's your case, Joaquim. I don't think that's Pedro's case too. But I have some close friends that even with training jiu-jitsu, they prefer to do their hard training earlier in the day. So
Yeah,
that
me too.
the
No.
adrenaline levels.
When I work out at night, I don't sleep as well. If I work out early in the morning and I wake up early and I have a routine of rest, like you described, of waking up with the sun and going to sleep as the sun goes down, and I wake up and I work out, and then I come, train, teach.
Yeah.
By the time I get home, I lay down, I sleep like in less than, I think, 30 seconds.
Wow.
And if that still doesn't work, what you're recommending, eliminate alcohol and caffeine from your life, and then tell me how your sleep improves.
Yeah, it might take a little time.
Sure.
But for sure. And one last, because there's so many different ways that you can work on this, but one last advice that helps me a lot is this. When you go to bed, instead of worrying about different topics, try to be grateful. Just thank everyone and the situations and even your past maybe friends that are maybe no longer here, your family members. I think about my grandparents. I think about my dad. I think about my close friends and everything that happens around me that I'm grateful for, and that is very helpful too.
That's interesting because we never spoke about this, but I do something very similar. I think, same idea of gratitude, but I think about my day. And I think like everything that happened in that day that I should be grateful for. And I think
That's
And
great.
it's very important to discuss rituals. I pray every night before I go to sleep, and it has to do with gratitude as well. So
Yeah, I
it's
think it's connected.
absolutely.
Good. Let's move on. Next, Pedro.
Next one is hygiene, cleanliness.
I think of my father immediately.
Yes.
Our father was a plastic surgeon, and he taught us from early on the importance of hygiene as a very powerful self-defense skill.
And we must look at history, the sanitary revolution that happened in England in the 19th century, and how people used to live in filth. It was really terrible. And how out of 1,000 children that were born, almost 200 died. Infant mortality was so high. And with the sanitary revolution, not just of the sewer system and sewage and the quality of the water especially, but then also personal cleanliness, household cleanliness that the government started to promote in Europe, in North America, and then around the world, the difference that made not only on infant mortality, but also on diseases, the ability for people to resist all types of diseases and to stop the spread of diseases, everything because of the sanitary revolution, because of hygiene practices. So the difference that hygiene made in the world and the ability of human beings to stay alive.
And it's so connected to jiu-jitsu, even though sometimes in some jiu-jitsu cultures, I think it lacks a lot. But if you look in history, I think the Japanese culture in general is very hygienic. And the hygienic movements also, they have to do with good nutrition. They have to do with good exercise.
Because the word
Hygiene.
hygiene comes from hygeia, who's the Greek goddess of health. So initially the word hygiene has to do with health. But in the 19th century, health was so connected with the sanitary revolution. Being healthy was so connected with hygiene that they started using the word hygiene specifically for cleanliness.
So Joaquim, a couple of things that come to your mind, of tips that come to your mind when we think of hygiene, of course, from our Father.
You know, the first thing that comes into my mind is thinking of how diseases and viruses and bacteria, you know, come into us, right? And how we have contact with it. You know, as a doctor, he was always very specific on his technique of washing hands. And it's interesting because of the pandemic, you know, this topic became so alive and you know, he's no longer here with us. And a lot of the techniques, I thought that he was the master on being able to teach us.
Yeah, and we're being promoted very similar things that I think for some time they were considered to be almost exaggerations.
Exactly.
Right?
And he was, you know, since little kids, I remember in school and on the technique on how to wash the hands, you know, thoroughly and making sure that you're hitting all the areas and the points of...
And the nails.
And where
what
bacteria...
else? What are some other tips?
Everything from, you know, brushing our teeth,
trimming
our nails.
Always trimming the nails.
To the way to shower. And the order in which you should, you know, shampoo your head and wash your body and all that. And
so hold on, let's talk about that, Pedro. You're a specialist, as I know you already teach your son that method, right? And it has to do with having a system.
Yeah.
And what's the system? Let's teach our friends a little bit.
Start simple. Shower every day. Wash your hair.
At least once, but
exactly.
Yes.
In a place like Miami, I think maybe more than once.
And washing your hair every day. Because the hair accumulates a lot of toxins. And the technique that my father taught us, he actually learned it in Israel, was one that when you should start washing your hair. And when you are in the shower, when you finish washing the hair, you should get in base, lean forward, and let the water fall on top of your head. So it rinses off the foam, the shampoo, into the ground and not into your body. Right? So that's the first step. And then washing the entire body very thoroughly.
And turning the water off as you are...
But that's to save energy. Yeah.
Correct.
Save water.
It's part of the method.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's part of the method.
Part of the method and something that he emphasized a lot since we were kids.
Yeah.
Before.
And it's not only to save energy in the sense that it's also reminding you that it shouldn't be just a little quick process.
Yes, correct. And then he would encourage us to, once again, a holistic approach to cleanliness. Wash the entire body thoroughly, from your nails, with a little brush. He would tell us to do that. And the toenails, in between the toes, behind the ears, your belly button. These are all areas that he said many times can accumulate bacteria. And
private parts, all of that.
Yes.
And something that I have to actually do, he always encouraged us to have a seating area.
Yes.
So
you can wash your toes.
So you can sit
your
down
feet
and wash your feet.
Yes.
Exactly. What else? Any other tips before we move on?
Then oral hygiene, right? The importance of brushing your teeth, the importance of keeping your mouth.
But he also
very
talked
clean.
about when we were younger, this actually changed. He was a little bit concerned about hurting especially as children, as you're learning how to floss, you want to be careful with the brush and with the floss not to injure the gum.
Correct.
Not to overdo it and injure the gum.
Yeah.
As many times, like Joaquim mentioned, bacteria, and I think I might be making a mistake, but I think viruses and bacteria many times will come in through these injuries in your mouth.
Absolutely. And inflammation.
Causing inflammation.
Yeah. But the inflammation also occurs for not flossing and not brushing your teeth thoroughly, and then all the pieces of food that stay there will cause inflammation, cause irritation of the gums, which then will go into the bloodstream and cause all sorts of
could possibly serious problems.
And also you notice that when you don't floss for a long time and then you floss, it's going to bleed more.
Yeah.
because your
Exactly.
your gums are
What else? Any other final?
There's
Because your
one
gums-
last one.
because your gums are inflamed.
Yeah.
There was one last one, which was, he used to say the face attracts a lot of bacteria and dust during the whole day. So, if you don't have the ability to shower multiple times a day or wherever you are, washing your face.
Correct.
Washing your face.
He was a big proponent of washing the face. When you go to wash your hands, wash your face, and that's going to help you.
But why does the face attract? Because it's the part of the body that is exposed.
Yes.
Usually we wear shirts, clothes,
Yeah.
and so that's
Gently,
important.
gently cleaning your nose, your nostrils
yes.
was something that he always talked about.
And also trimming your nails, because the nails underneath the nails you can accumulate a lot of
Yes.
bacteria and dirt. So trimming the nails also extremely important.
Yes, Joaquim had mentioned that as one of the main ones. But it's never too much to remind our friends of these tips. Okay.
You said
next.
about the nostrils, the ears as well. Very
Yes.
important to maintain good hygiene
And we could
of your
go on.
ears.
We
For-
could
for
go
a
on.
lot.
I think bathroom hygiene, right?
Oh,
But
yes.
we're not going to talk about that
No, but I'm
now.
just going to say something. It's not just about your body. It's about your surroundings, your car, your office,
Very
your
important.
house.
Organization.
Organization and cleanliness, that's all part of hygiene.
Yes. Good.
Last one.
Positivity. Is positivity toxic? A lot of people now talk about toxic
But
positivity.
hold on. So the first question is this: how is positivity part of
Physical
the
hygiene.
body?
Not hygiene.
Not physical
Yeah.
health.
That's a good question. Stress is a physical problem.
Actually, Pedro, I'm sorry to interrupt you because you said something when we were talking about nutrition. You said, we are what we eat. And then you corrected yourself. You said, not really. And I think I was waiting for this moment. And I think in great part, of course, there's, like we said, everything is connected and you can't just attribute your health to one of these elements. But I think that positivity is huge when it comes to,
And that's why it's on the 5.
yeah,
Because it affects all the other 5. And it affects your ability to be healthy, for your body to be healthy. Because if we just say physical health, exercise, nutrition, rest, hygiene, you can if your mind is always stressed,
that might be the one, right? That
You're
might
not
be.
gonna be-
I know you don't want to
No, but
single out,
okay,
but I
but
think it
if you-
might be because
no,
recently,
there's no one. There's
but
no one. You're
recently-
drinking alcohol and eating hamburgers all day.
yeah, but recently, whenever I meet someone, a friend of mine who mentions my grandfather is 95 years old, is 100-something years old, and I agree, it's not one. But I always ask this question: is your grandmother easygoing? And usually the answer is yes.
I think it's huge. I'm not disagreeing with you. However,
Somebody who's relaxed,
I have
somebody
two-
who's not overly stressed out.
I have 2 authors that I often read, and our father used to like them a lot. One talks about the importance of positivity, and the other one talks about the importance of nutrition. And both of them say that the other one doesn't matter too much.
No, but if you have to pick one.
I don't.
No, you
can't.
have to.
You cannot.
No, but
You're gonna suffer. You're gonna be in.
no, but I'm telling you, look,
It depends.
it's-
If you let me tell you, I'm
It's
sorry.
a question.
I'm not gonna
You don't
fall
wanna
for
answer
that.
it. Okay,
no,
got it.
because what's okay? You're gonna be the easygoing person, but you're gonna eat hamburgers for every meal and drink alcohol. You're gonna be sick, and you're not even gonna.
He's
be,
going to be sick,
you're
but I
gonna-
think he's going to be better than someone.
Sorry, he can't even have a positive mind because the food is gonna affect his
Well,
mood.
Yeah,
100%.
Pedro is exaggerating the point.
The point.
No, that hamburgers are gonna affect your mood.
No, you're saying
No.
if the person only eats hamburgers and only drinks
Yeah.
alcohol.
Oh, sure.
But the point
Yeah.
is that someone who has
Well,
a
if they're only
worse-
eating hamburgers, is that bad? If it's only
The
meat, if it's only meat,
if
Oh,
it's
the
well, it depends on the hamburger.
No. Because it combines.
Depends on the hamburger.
well, let's go back to
If he doesn't eat anything else and only hamburgers, he might be eating much better than a lot of people. So
if there's no ketchup or mayonnaise.
especially if
I said alcohol too.
Especially if people that eat healthy are aliens and they're very hard to find. So the point is, I think the reason why Guy brought this up and was hard on Pedro on this is that, and our dad used to say this, that it's better for someone to eat a meal that's not so well combined and not with the best selection happy than it is for someone to eat a very healthy meal in a very stressful setting.
That I agree with 100%.
And I think that's the point.
That's the point.
But the whole point is that you can't choose one. That's the bigger point.
No, you can't choose
It's
one.
holistic. 753 code is
but
exactly.
But it
what
is
Pedro-
holistic, but I think in a technique of evolution in which someone tries to improve, he cannot attack all of these together.
No, I think Joaquim,
And
I
I think
agree,
the person
the
is
foundation.
okay.
I think the word is foundation.
Foundation, yes, but I think the person has all the right, and that's the point that I was making earlier, for them to say, you know what, the first thing that I want to be able to improve on is on creating a better setting at home.
The foundation. The foundation. That's
Explain.
why. Yeah, no, I think it's exactly what you're saying. I think it's a perfect point, and I agree with you 100%. And I just want to use a word that we use here in our curriculums. The foundation of a healthy body actually starts with a positive mindset.
I agree with that. But I also believe that the foundation of a positive mind is a healthy body. And I think that they're very connected. Now, obviously, Joaquim, everyone has the right to start their journey with positivity. But my message is that if you don't attack this issue on all fronts, you will have a hard time achieving your goal, which is a holistic health.
Improvement to your health.
Improvement to your health, yes.
Good. So what else? So what are some tips again for a positive, easygoing style?
So in our house, our father didn't like whining and complaining.
Which we sometimes do amongst ourselves.
Yes, he didn't like that. And he always said, I don't believe in problems. I believe in things to be resolved. So positivity begins with how you face adversity.
He actually said, for every problem, bring me 10 solutions instead of finding 10 problems every time I bring a solution. Something like that, right?
So we believe in positivity. We believe in learning to look at adversity in a positive way. Find the bright side of things. Now, when people talk about toxic positivity, they're talking about positivity that is not authentic. And obviously we're against that. Positivity must be authentic. We can't force it. But we can use our creativity, our ingenuity, to be able to find the positive perspective, to find the positive angle. And we can't surrender to all the negative thoughts that come into our mind, because they come all the time. All the time. You have negative thoughts. The question is, what do you do with them? And I think Grandmaster Elio, our teacher, our jiu-jitsu teacher, gave us good advice. He said, when a negative thought comes to your mind, punch it in the face and send it away.
But some people will say that's not good.
Well,
Acceptance. You have said this before. Acceptance.
accept, because you don't want to blame yourself or feel guilty for having a negative thought. That's bad. And that's negativity. That's not positivity.
I personally like Elio Gracie's.
Me too. But it doesn't,
Strategy.
but they are not mutually exclusive. You can do both. You can accept your thoughts. I don't remember Elio Gracie being, oh my God, I can't believe I'm having these thoughts. I'm upset at myself for having these thoughts. No.
I've never seen that in my life.
So he accepted the thoughts. It's okay, I have the thoughts, but I don't mind, because I have the ability to fight them. So you accept that they exist,
And you don't give in.
and you accept them as something natural, something normal, but you need to have the mental strength to not exactly give in to those negative thoughts and to not allow for them to control you. Now, you might feel bad for a while. You might feel sad. That's okay. And you have to go through these feelings with courage and patience, above all patience, and trust that they're going to go away. But you can't allow them to control your actions.
Yeah, I think patience is a key word when it comes to dealing with issues that come to your mind, the enemies within,
Yes.
right? The enemies within. And sometimes, many times, these are inexplicable thoughts. Why am I thinking this? Why am I afraid of this? Why am why am I thinking this absurdity? And I think that you should not be too hard on yourself. Of course, slap it away, but also be patient. Punching it, yes, but it might take some time.
Yeah, when you punch somebody, they're not going to be knocked out right away.
Exactly.
You might have to throw several punches.
And
The fight might be long.
Or, as you know, to use a jiu-jitsu analogy, a grappling analogy, sometimes that problem, that thought might mount you, right? Yes. You might be on the bottom, and it might be a little hard for you to breathe, Joaquim. And what do you do in those situations?
You gotta wait. You gotta wait, and I think that, you know, we all have problems, and we can all think of situations and scenarios that are real in our life that we have a very hard time applying the strategy that both of you described. And those are what I call the monsters, the big monsters. And it's okay to have those big monsters, but don't use those big monsters as your guinea pig to be able to train the strategy. Pick the easy ones. Pick the easy things that you stress yourself over that do you no good. Like, you know, getting upset at someone on the phone because you're trying to change an airline ticket. That's very bad for you.
Correct.
So use those opportunities, or in traffic, you're getting upset at someone that cut you off. If you use those scenarios as training opportunities for you to be able to improve, one day you're going to be able to take that big monster and do better at dealing with those problems. And I think that
big time.
And I think that if you do this every day, you can develop all the virtues in the 753 code. But especially with positivity, there's one that, you know, came into my mind because both Pedro and Gui, they spoke about how my dad didn't like whining and didn't like complaining and the negativity that comes a lot from this. And I think this comes a lot from our personal relationships with people at work, you know, relationships at home or wherever with friends. And if there's one thing that really comes into my mind that creates this, is judgment. If you don't judge, you're going to see that you're going to start having much less negativity coming into your mind. Because the moment that you judge, right, you create a judgment towards something, a lot of times you're creating negativity towards you, and if you have a relationship with that person, towards the other person also.
Absolutely. If I can say something, because I said that our father didn't like whining and complaining. And some people might say, well, but he's not allowing you to express your true feelings. If you feel like whining, you should whine. If you feel like complaining, you should complain. The problem is that whining and complaining become a habit. And he understood that. And you don't want to develop the habit of always whining and complaining. You don't want to develop the habit of dealing with problems by whining and complaining. That is not good. The most important word that you used when we started talking about positivity, and when you were saying that's the most important thing, is the word easygoing. Because if you think about the word disease, think about it. This is. If you remove the this, then it becomes ease. So the process of being sick is a problem of dis-ease, lack of ease. So when you are easygoing, when you live an easygoing life, when you're not creating drama, creating stress with every little thing, getting upset too easily, then you will build a habit, because that also, you can have the habit of whining and complaining and stressing over everything, or you can build a habit of being an easygoing person. So that must be a choice. You must say, I choose to be an easygoing person, and I'm going to put an effort into living an easygoing life.
I agree. But I think that, you know, we can't confuse easygoing and the lack of judgment, which I think is extremely important, with just accept everything then, in the sense that I have no motivation in my daily life to be able to improve, to be able to help others, to be able to see that someone might be going the wrong path and reaching a hand to help.
So let me talk about that, because I think that's one of my main missions, especially within my circle of friends and family members, I like to often, without judging, and I think that's a great advice. I think we have to really try hard not to judge.
Because judgment is bad for the person who's feeling.
Judging, correct.
Yeah.
So, but like you said, communication is key. I think both from within. So if you're going through something, you should be able, and you should have people within your circle of trust that you feel very comfortable to communicate with. I think that's essential. That's a key way to cope and to even overcome problems. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to whine, because whining is not good communication. Choose a good time, choose a good moment, ask for a good conversation, right? And it could be at any time, but if you really need help, those that are there for you will always be willing to help you. But talk about what's going through your mind instead of whining. Whining many times is actually an escape. You're not really opening yourself. You're just complaining, but you're not talking about what really is the problem.
You're not becoming vulnerable.
Correct.
And I think this is one of the hardest things that people have, the ability to do.
Yeah, to open up.
And that takes a lot of confidence.
Courage.
Insecure people cannot be vulnerable. And then they don't reap the benefits of that communication.
And I think that's why jiu-jitsu is amazing, because jiu-jitsu, wanting or not, you're going to become vulnerable in one of the most, physical ways. And
let me add something to that, because you said something which sometimes people see as but if I'm too easygoing, I'm not going to be able to fight against injustice. I'm not going to be able to work hard. So you cannot confuse anger with focus. It's okay to be highly focused. It's okay to be highly motivated. It's okay to work hard. And on the mat, when we spar, we learn how to fight each other without being angry at each other. Exactly. So you can fight hard without being upset. So you can be easygoing, but still work hard, still fight against injustice, but without being angry, without having hate in your heart, because those feelings are destructive.
This could be an amazing podcast, I think. I think it's a great topic. I think for us to save and do an episode on this.
All right, very good. So, thank you so much for watching. Once again, remember to subscribe to our channel. Remember to like this video, or dislike, of course, and turn on the notification bell. We will see you very soon. And Pedro, any final comments?
No, just remember, we have the 753 code book. It's a great tool.
You have to come here to Valente Brothers to buy your copy.
Yes. And hopefully one day you'll be able to come visit us. Thank you so much for your time.
Joaquim.
Thank you very much, and I hope to see all of you very soon. Thank you.
So long.